Hello everyone, this one is going to be another interesting video. This one I'm going to talk about how the right-wing media have to take some responsibility for the rising for the far right and the fact that they must learn from lessons. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, what I mean by this is the right-wing media, and I'm not talking about like BBC or anything like that, but they are slightly complicit. I'm talking about people such as the Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph, the Sun. They've constantly been spreading a lot of misinformation and also a lot of prejudice. For example, if we take migration. Now, statistically, migration is one of the best things for Great Britain, as it increases tax revenue. People pay their way. People come here, they set up businesses, and they create jobs. However, according to like the Daily Mail and many others like this, these are demonized. These people. Say they're here to sponge off the state. Others, this I think is a very sad thing, because there aren't people who are here to sponge off the state. A lot of them come here to start businesses up, raise their family in the benefits of living here. For education, for example, we have a fantastic health service. There's more future than some places, yet, and there's also those that have come here because of problems with unstable countries, and also I believe that a lot of that, some of that, we have to take responsibility as a nation for our politicians declaring war on these countries and now dealing with the fallout. The one thing, though, that the Mail has constantly done is it's glorified and demonised, glorified people such as Katie Hopkins, Victoria Hartley Brewer, and it's basically allowed the likes of Tommy Robinson to take over the narrative. We've seen it with the Windrush generation, this toxicity of demonisation and of outsiders. And it's not just immigrants or people from other countries, it's disabled people. We've seen hate crimes rise. We've seen a lot of things happen to people who have issues and problems. We've seen people who just speak out against any injustice as snowflakes, social warriors. Yet, it's worth bearing in mind that these so-called snowflakes and social justice warriors are actually trying to bring attention to a major issue that's happened. They're not deliberately trying to spoil your fun, because that is another thing that's come across. And I think the fact that we now have a situation now where every single week we are seeing headlines, and it's in big bold headlines. You only have to walk past the newspapers and it's Muslim terror plot, Asian refugee crisis, Britain at tipping point. And it's all these sort of stories that have led to demonisation, and it's causing paranoia, and it's always done that. And why do they do that? It's because the people that they back, these are the people that are in power, the Conservatives, a lot of right-wing organisations. They don't want people to understand the damage that their party's done. For example, if we take the cuts in disability benefits, the high suicidal rates, we don't take the fact that that there's been massive amounts of tax cuts, workers are not getting paid as much, zero contracts. If we all take this into context, then as long as we're busy moaning about, say, a migrant crisis, as long as we're busy moaning about us v them, they can do what they want, because they've created this smokescreen. And I believe that's what Brexit was meant to be. It was meant to be a smokescreen, a distraction for a couple of months, just to appease right wingers and it backfired on them terribly because they had no plan for what would happen, assuming they'd think, oh, we'll just do this, we'll put our Eurosceptics MPs out of the place, it'll shut them up, and we'll just carry on business as normal. What they did not expect was there was a massive backlog of right-wing propaganda that came about from the Vote Leave campaign. Now, the people who want us to be at the European Union are the people who, for example, the Barclay brothers, Rupert Murdoch, and the reason they don't want the EU is because without the EU as a filtering mechanism, they could pretty much tell any politician, if you do what we say, and we will give you the best publicity and we'll get you votes. And this would generally mean that they'd be under the thumb of Murdoch, which has happened in the past. Murdoch has actually famously said that he got an open door policy to any prime minister, but he doesn't have that with the EU. So of course you understand why he doesn't want the EU there. He has, for example, and in America, he basically can manipulate the current president. So that's another reason why I think that the media try and vilify everyone. It's because they are very organised. And anyone that questions them or does anything that basically does not fit with their lines and their objectivity is either classed as a traitor, a communist, and in the case of Owen Jones, a wrong'un. Yeah, Owen Jones has been called a wrong'un by a lot of people who like to fight, have been seen members with Nazi salutes, people who have convicted, seen it at like really right-wing rallies, and I mean like we're talking fascism-style rallies. We're not talking about, casual racism rallies. We're talking about extreme right-wing rallies, and yet they are constantly, and yet the left wing who are trying to do things, trying to make the system better, are vilified. And same with Jeremy Corbyn. He's been vilified as a communist, as an IRS sympathiser, purely because they do not want him in power. Because if he gets in power, he will not doff their cap. He will not doff his cap to them. He will not give them what they want. And this is why they don't like him. This is why they vilify people like that. And it's the same with the EU. They are trying to vilify them because they don't want the EU to... The EU doesn't bow to their controls and their whims. And that's the reason why I think the media does not like... The right-wing media are taking any genuine concerns as Project Fear, but we'll see what happens. Personally, the last few days with the current Prime Minister's plan, I'm actually believe that there may be the only way we can deal with this deadlock now. We've got two options left to us. No deal is the default option, but no one wants that. Only like the hardcore of Jacob Rees-Mogg and Farage. However, they were singing a completely different hymn when they were campaigning for us to leave. But what's going to happen now, personally, is I think we're going to see an amendment in Parliament, and it's going to state if there is no deal, one of two things needs to happen. Number one, we revoke Article 50, and that's only if no deal can be arranged. And two, if there's no Article 50 and we're forced, we'll do a people's vote. They're the two options, I think. The only reason I would say revoking Article 50 would be straight away is if there was no time and there was no way a hard deal would be ready. They could say that they're going to revoke it now, and I think 2 years was too ambitious. 3 years for the final was ambitious. It should have been 5-10 year process to revoke it and then put plans in place so that it wouldn't have the problems that it has. And me being, obviously this is me being a pro-European who believes we change things inside the building, not in the car park. And I believe that either way, whatever we decide, yes, if we revoke Article 50, it will upset some people. But if we leave without anything on any scraps on the table, and try and do this so-called WTO rules, which by the way is not as plain sailing, because we found out that Taiwan have objected to our proposal for a WTO tariffs, so that could take longer than expected. So it won't be plain sailing. All these things that they promised they can't deliver. So I think we're going to either see another referendum with an extension, and it will be a get out of jail card, I think, for the government. The government can claim that the only way to deal with this deadlock is another referendum. If Leave moan about it, their answer could be, well, if you strongly are passionate about it, vote again. And if, vote again, they'll moan. But you can't block democracy with democracy. You can't block a vote with another vote. It doesn't work like that. Now, they may say, oh, well, we'll vote until we get it right. No, that's not what we're saying here. We are saying we're in deadlock now. The only way to get it out the way is either revoke it completely with the hope of maybe picking it up when we get a better set of circumstances, or a people's vote. That's providing they allow us an extension for Article 50. They may do, I think they may allow an extension if there is a strong possibility of the decision being reversed. That is just my opinion. And I think there is now strong evidence of a reverse. I'm seeing a lot of people who are claiming to have voted Leave publicly, who won't back down, but there are minority, the few. I actually believe that there are more people now who are it's only what I refer to as the extremists who still want to leave. I actually believe the swing voters, by the way, the swing voters are the ones that want it for Leave, and maybe leaning towards Brexit now. I lean well away from Brexit and more towards Remain, because they are now seeing a government that doesn't know what it's doing. They're seeing Parliament all over the place, and they're seeing not enough plans. They're seeing risks to health, to food, to security now, and I think they would. And Brexit extremists can argue all the hilts, but there's not many options. The government will not agree to a no. The government, despite their blustering, Parliament will not. The majority of Parliament, there is no mandate for a hard Brexit, and no one voted for hard Brexit. If you look at all the footage from the past, Mogg, Farage and all the others, they were mentioning Canada-style deals, Norway-style deals. No one never mentioned a hard Brexit, but they're mentioning it now. It's kind of taking the ball and going home. And I think that's the only way we're going to fix it. Have a referendum. Have another referendum, but 4 questions this time. And the 4 questions I would put on it are: 1, do you want to leave the EU and the single market and the customs union completely? Do you want to stay within the customs union but leave the EU? And thirdly, do you want May's deal, which will be the third? And the final one, do you want to stay in the EU completely? And to make it fair, have it an alternative vote system. So you put your first choice, then your second choice. That way, that will stop any problems with the 50-50 yes, no. You'll get a decision that best represents the country. And I guarantee you that the hard Brexit will be probably last on that in that poll. It'll be more single market, maybe customs, or it'll be, let's forget it. I don't see hard Brexit being the most popular. But there you go, that's my opinion. And I think we must, for the next few months, please be wary. Keep yourself safe. Try not to avoid stockpiling as much as you can, unless you really, really need to stockpile stuff. Luckily for me, I don't need. I'm a diabetic, so I don't, and I got a fair few amount of insulin if I need it. But I know that other people may have had difficulty getting drugs. So please keep yourself safe. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything aggressive. Just keep yourself safe. Okay. And there you go. Bye.